can't think about Canada without thinking of hockey, and the person singing the walk-on song is Stompin' Tom Connors, a famous Canadian folk singer. And this song was played today in sadness and my mourning of my Ottawa Senators losing to the American Pittsburgh Penguins, who will go on to hopefully win the Stanley Cup. What I do at Canada Post is I'm in charge of e-commerce strategy. And the way we look at e-commerce strategy, we take on very much a design thinking approach and a journey mapping approach, and it's very consumer focused. And we get our insights from consumers in two ways. So the first way we get insights is in Canada, Canada Post delivers probably over 2/3 of e-commerce shipments to Canadians. So that means we track the data. So we know every shipment from every origin to every destination, from every shipper to every household. So that's one way to get information, and I'll share some of that with you. And then the second way we get information is we look at that landscape and what's happening there, and then we start looking for what are the problems to solve to help e-commerce conversion and e-commerce customer experience for all Canadians in helping all merchants grow. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you our view of the Canadian e-commerce landscape, both from what it looks like for a business opportunity for you, and then I'm going to share with you the insights of what the Canadian consumers are thinking and expecting in terms of customer experience. So these are eMarketer numbers, and they show tremendous growth in e-commerce. In Canada last year, Canada Post, in terms of shipping volume, we saw e-commerce growth at 16%. It's higher than the United States. There's a number of reasons for that, but I'll just say for now, and then we'll get into the details later, that Canadians are very hungry to buy online for two reasons. We don't have what you have. So we've got some retailers, but we don't have what you have, and we want what you have. And the second reason is, given the Canadian landscape, everyone lives close to your border, with a couple of exceptions. So not only do we not have what you have, but retailers just don't want to go set up there. So two main reasons, and then I'll go in more details. Canadian shoppers, like all e-commerce shoppers, they shop for three reasons. And here, maybe not necessarily in the right order, but first they shop for product. And I just told you that we don't have what you have. So a lot of cross-border shopping is driven, so Canadian shopping in the United States is driven by the simple fact that the products aren't available in Canada. And then once they identify the product, they look for price, cheapest price, and when you're talking about cross-border, it's cheapest price for the whole transaction, not just the price of the product itself. And then they look for convenience. And the numbers here show that convenience is, well, maybe there's no store nearby and so on, but I'll talk more about convenience later in terms of if we were to plan the customer experience and journey map it, where are the convenience hiccups and what can we do to address those to make a better customer experience, to drive a successful first transaction and drive long-term lifetime value and loyalty of our customers. So here's the growth in e-commerce in Canada. And it's really interesting what's been happening. So I said Canada e-commerce grew 16% last year. Sorry, some of the province names are in French here because we have both official languages, French and English in Canada. And you'll see that back to hockey cities. So if you're going to drive a strategy to penetrate any country, if a professional sports team is going to set up there, chances are it's a pretty important market. So the hockey cities are Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. Quebec City wanted one, but they didn't get one because they're not big enough. And so what we saw 2-3 years ago is those markets were growing the fastest in Canada. So if you want to come to Canada, come to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and then other important cities. What we're seeing now is tremendous growth in the secondary markets, those that you may not know quite right away. So Kitchener, Ontario is the home of BlackBerry. Affluent community. Hamilton is near Toronto. Winnipeg has a hockey team, and so on. So we're seeing a wave of adoption of maturity in the Canadian market where major urban centers adopt it and are driving hard volumes of transactions. and now secondary markets are coming on board. It's important to understand that when you want to say, when you look at the Canadian market opportunity and you say, where do I want to target for acquisition? So you have to get an idea of that. Next is, because we deliver to all these addresses and we deliver a lot of volume, we can help start pinpointing the areas and the provinces where high growth is happening, and very high growth is happening. And just as an example here in Alberta, that's oil country for us. In northern Alberta, that's where we unfortunately had that huge forest fire last year. Areas of high growth, areas of a lot of income and not a lot of supply. Again, these people want what you have and they can't get their hands on it. And there's Calgary and Edmonton in there. And on the East Coast, there's Toronto and Ottawa and so on. If we dig a little bit deeper, we're able to provide you data by city itself so that you can look at, okay, what's the makeup of the country and how do I go penetrating and identifying the high volume purchases there? And then we can drill even deeper. This is a affluent suburb of Richmond Hill, of Toronto, which is called Richmond Hill. We actually just set up a prototype post office there that's got a drive-through for the busy moms and dads with the kids in the back seat. Frank and Oak from Montreal, they had a chat with us. They said, Mark, we send a box called the Hunt Club every month to young men who don't know how to dress themselves quite as well as we could. And what we want is we want them to get the box, pick it up at the post office, and try it on. So we put a change room in there. So that's the Richmond Hill post office. So a drive-through and a change room. And what we can do with the data we see, we can layer external data on top of that and start profiling what that neighborhood, that city looks like in terms of demographic profile, so population, children, employment, education, and so on. So coming to Canada and having a proper view of what the country looks like, of where the high volume purchases are, is really important, and the data can help you get to that, and we can help with that. Now this slide is really important. So again, my team monitors the health of the Canadian market, and one of the things we wanted to know about that's important for you is what's the state of e-commerce adoption in Canada? And if you look at Forrester eMarketer numbers, you'll see that the percentage of retail sales in Canada versus e-commerce is higher than the United States. We'll see that 5.6 to 6% of Canadian retail sales are made online, whereas the US it's 7, 8, and the UK it's 15. And so we wanted to know what's going on there. And we're seeing a fairly mature market. So we're seeing a lot lower first-time buyers online that we used to see a few years ago. And we're seeing the whole level of frequency move to the right, where a lot of Canadians look like hyper shoppers. I call them hyper shoppers. Amazon would call them Amazon Prime. I would estimate they buy 2.5 times more than all the other shoppers. 80% of Canadians have shopped online last year, and almost half of them buy from the US because you have what we don't have. The 10% at the far right, those hyper shoppers, they make most of the purchases in Canada. So it's pretty important to be able to identify them if you're going to maximize your investment in launching in a country. And 70% of those purchase from the US. So I'm going to summarize all this by saying Canada is hungry for e-commerce, and the Canadian buffet is not big enough, so we're eating elsewhere. A lot. And we're seeing it at the border, and we're seeing it in Vancouver and in Toronto and so on. Not only are we seeing a lot, but as this curve moves to the right, the people and the hyper shoppers on the right are accelerating their growth, and their intention to buy even more online is coming on. And we're seeing it in product categories. And so in this case, it's not, the data is not from transactional data. The data we've seen so far is transactional data. This is from survey data. And a third of Canadian shoppers are buying apparel, a quarter books, music, and videos, a quarter consumer electronics, a quarter toys and hobbies, and so on. So we buy across categories. The next category to fall, in my opinion, and what I see from the merchants I'm talking to, is snacks, consumer packaged goods, and so on. So the total value of the average basket that we see here, so apparel 97%, $63 for books and music, $114 and so on, in my opinion is about to drop, but that's not bad news. It's about to drop because the category they're about to adopt is a lesser price category. We'll see welcoming of snacks, dried goods, consumer packaged goods, and so on, which is prime for your market. So we're on the cusp of that in Canada. Now, we need to understand, and I have a feeling what I'm going to talk about is going to resonate with the American consumer as well. So we need to understand how the Canadian online shopper, especially those hyper shoppers, feel about their customer experience and what they want from us. And from us, I mean from you, from the carriers, from the fulfillment houses, from everyone who makes up the overall customer experience. And I'll tell you that our research, and UPS, who we compete against, published research in the United States that says that pre-purchase experience in terms of shipping and delivery and what that means to the overall customer experience is very, very important. Shipping pricing is very important to Canadians, perhaps more than in the United States, and I'll show you what that looks like. And I'll say immediately that finding a way to do free shipping with conditions is the way to win. But the idea is affording free shipping is very difficult, but Canadians are willing to accept free shipping with conditions. But the initial value proposition ideally would include free shipping. And then we'll talk about the final mile and what it means to the overall customer experience, the value of the brand, and the marketing promise. So here's the way we look at it, and I encourage you to do the same thing. So what we do at Canada Post is we sit in front of a whiteboard, and we sit down with retailers, and the retail teams include marketing people, operations people, the digital team, and maybe their agency. And then we write out a high-level journey map. And the journey map of the consumer, you acquire them through the channels that were discussed before on stage. Then they get onto your website and shop. Then they'll get to the checkout and buy. Then it gets handed off to fulfillment, and I see fulfillment houses here. Then it gets put on a truck and tracked. Then it gets delivered. And in your case, there won't be very many returns, but returns is a key part of that whole customer experience. And if you do that well, you get repeat purchases. You get the life of your member becomes longer, and the value proposition, the total lifetime value is longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to look a little bit at the key irritants for Canadian consumers in the pre-purchase experience and where shipping and delivery fit. Again, I encourage you to draw the whole workflow with your peers on a whiteboard and then design the customer experience and see what it looks like. So from a shopping experience perspective, from a delivery expectations perspective, so is what you're shipping perishable? Does it suffer cold or heat well? Are the people you're going to ship to at home, and so on? And then returns experience for those of you who happen to require proper solutions for returns. Again, we map out the whole workflow and we say, okay, what happens to shoppers when they shop online from a shipping and delivery perspective? The Canadian shoppers, your American numbers are close. And the minute they get onto your online store, whether it be mobile or on a laptop, they're expecting a delivery date, a delivery promise. Amazon taught them that. Amazon said, you will receive your parcel on X day. Do you do that? Or is it a week? So the more precise, the better. And the more precise the promise to Canadians, the higher the conversion. So 33% of shoppers we surveyed expect some sort of delivery promise. I'm going to receive my box on the second Wednesday of each month. Not you're going to receive your box sometime in the last 2 weeks of the month, and so on. They expect shipping costs, and actually total costs, to be provided right up front at checkout. And I'll speak to shipping costs later, but again, offering free shipping under a bunch of conditions is very acceptable to Canadians. If we stay on top, so 42% expect that in order to improve conversion. In terms of delivery expectations, when it gets to the other end, and this is also pre-purchase, because delivery expectations can be set up on the website right up front. If the items are perishable, or people aren't home, and in Canada there are 38% of people that are never home to receive goods. So think about what's inside your box. Think about whether it's perishable or not. Think about whether consumers need to be there that day, or if they're not there that day, they're going to have to wait till the next day to pick it up at a post office or a pickup point of some kind. In offering delivery speeds, in your models, I'm not sure if you do that, but 22% would like delivery speed choices, and in other research we saw that 15% are willing to pay a little bit more for that. On the downside, there's abandonment of the shopping cart if the customer experience isn't laid out properly, end to end. And I said the delivery carrier is not mentioned at checkout. I wouldn't say delivery carrier, but a proper indication of what they're going to experience when they push the buy button. And then they expect custom duties and taxes to be laid out up front, because the worst thing that happened to a Canadian is to buy something at a great deal and so on, and then the post office or someone else not allow them to get their hands on the things they purchase that they wait for every month without having to pay taxes and duties. So they want to know up front. And then we don't need to talk about returns too much in this room, but consumers in general look for returns policies right up front on the website. And if it's not there, and friendly return policies, and if it's not there, 17% will just drop out. And lack of return options will cause 10% to drop out. So that may not apply directly to subscription, but the whole notion of avoiding someone canceling, being able to save the relationship and continue this ongoing conversation with your customers is really important. I'll talk a little bit about free shipping in Canada. So 30% drop in conversion rate if free shipping is not there. So free shipping is important to Canadians, and they've got a bunch of other options that they'll turn to. So they'll buy from a competitor, they'll sacrifice delivery speed, and so on. And this whole notion impacts the entire customer experience because it's right at the start, and it shows up when you acquire in your marketing materials, and it'll show up on your website as well. So consider free shipping. In Canada, free shipping is pretty prevalent, so you need to understand that because Canadian consumers have great visibility into this. So of Canada's top 100 retailers, 56, these are top 100 Canada Post accounts, 56% offer free shipping, 24 offer flat rate shipping. Flat rate is awesome because you can market that, and 20% calculate shipping at checkout, which is less awesome because you can't market that, because it's different every time someone buys. I don't recommend that third one. In the United States, of the Internet Retailers Top 100, there is less free shipping being offered. 9% offer free shipping, 26% offer flat rate shipping, and 65% calculate shipping at checkout. So just to remember what the Canadian expects versus what the American expects based on what they see being offered in the market. So you need to optimize your options in terms of shipping. And in the previous slide, I did see a promo about free shipping. The first is do A/B testing to find the optional flat rate shipping. Second is do introduce free shipping with minimum purchase thresholds and I just say conditions. And Canadians love that. You see free shipping, I'll bend and I'll accept some conditions. Next is through A/B testing, you can adjust an existing minimum purchase threshold. And our research, and we got a white paper on this that's pretty detailed. I have an economics degree, and I nerded out on this stuff. And we looked at the elasticity price of shipping. And we've got a white paper that indicates whether you have a rare luxury product or more of a commodity product, where Canadian thresholds are acceptable in terms of flat rate shipping and minimum baskets and so on. So we have a white paper, and you can come ask for it at our booth. And then D, in Canada, use free shipping, I say here strategically, as a marketing investment to acquire new customers. End of story. There's no need to do free shipping for nothing in Canada. So I encourage you to do free shipping with conditions. Make the consumer pay a little bit in exchange for free shipping. So to end my presentation, again, come learn about Canada. We'll help you understand it better. And when it comes to shipping to Canada, audit your customer experience. Actually, it might be beneficial even to do it for your American customers or any customer around the world. I invite you to sit down again, and the marketing team needs to be there with the operations team and the digital team, because you're gonna sit with the operations and you're gonna say, here's my customer experience by the time I acquire them through affiliate marketing or search or so on, all the way through a delivery. And I want to know every step, and I want to know every irritant, and a lot of steps and irritants are solved through collaboration with operations to make a promise that makes sense to your customers on your website. So the digital and the marketing make the promise, but it's executed by operations, so don't leave whoever's the operator from your meeting. You have to make some promises, so you need to make efforts to monitor the KPI around your operational promises that are made on the website. Because if Canadian customers don't see you deliver on those promises, then you're going to have a risk of cancellation. And then the last message is shipping and delivery and fulfillment. We feel bad because we're the people who show up wearing steel toes and dirty jeans, and we work in the back room, and we're left behind. And a large part of the customer experience and the value proposition that makes Amazon win, that's teaching all our consumers what to expect from e-commerce, is driven by the integration of operations into everything that's market-facing. So you have to sit down in a room with all the team members to make sure you understand what you're doing to consumers and how you can improve their experience overall, including operational issues. And from the time of fulfillment all the way to the time of delivery. Thank you for your time and attention.